So I had to think about this. It was more Gen Z I've worked with than millennial. I mean both. But I said were outstanding men. They were mostly Gen Z actually. Older millennial, young Gen Zs. And yeah, I know Charlie Kirk was a Gen Zer. Okay, up to no good though. See, you have to realize that the way that God purges generational curses, because generational curses, besides the original sin curse, which man created with masculinity, but there's generational curses, and naturally it takes time. They start flushing themselves out. So even though everybody wants to complain about what the feminist movement became, and I never supported the feminist movement, but yet in most of my videos in the past 7 months, I would sound absolutely like I'm a feminist. No, I'm about, just equal. It shouldn't be that hard. But the Charlie Kirks, the reason God has pushed me so much about how angry he is with him and Turning Point is because they wanted to go so far backwards and create the very curse to embed it further when God was finally purging it through older millennials and early Gen Zers. And then that wicked one comes on the scene, and all of these politicians supported him. And yet again, at the end of the day, God comes before God comes before Trump, all of them. Don Jr., all these people can be foolish all they want and promote Charlie Kirk, but I think that the more people keep trying to dig down into who did it, poor Charlie Kirk, I think that maybe the way God will finally let himself be known is I did it. I purged him. And all of you, because you didn't know me, couldn't see that truth. Because again, with your older millennials and your young Gen Zs, or Gen Zs in general, until Charlie Kirk, that is, that masculinity curse, not that they didn't have masculinity, they had the natural form of it that God wanted. And see, that scared your elites. So what do your elites do? They get some Gen Zer to get out there and start pushing the toxic stuff again. See, I kind of understand what the toxic masculinity is, but when you're raised with a lot of it, not necessarily raised with your parents as it with, because of that, but because you have seen it in your generation. I think most Gen Xers would agree they've seen the toxic masculinity. I think most Gen X women would agree that, the stuff Charlie Kirk was talking about was ridiculous. I mean, unless they're just don't know God, okay? Which a ton don't. Because I've not seen anybody say what I'm saying. But Gen Xers, and definitely baby boomers, there was this form of toxic masculinity that was pushed. The problem with that is that, as I read last night, is the very thing that prevents man from being able to have a relationship with God. So here it was, finally, that was being flushed out. What God wanted was this taking down this masculinity construct, thereby making it easier for millennial men and Gen Z men to naturally understand having that personal relationship with God. And then the elites who serve Satan got Charlie Kirk out there. paid his ass to get out there and push this women submitting stuff. And you could see what I hated the most about him was you could see that he hated women. I think he was closeted homosexual, but doesn't matter. Most of the Republicans likely are. Well, all the ones that stood on that stage and support him, in my opinion, likely closeted homosexuals. Because that's what's tied into all of this. It's this need to continually go after women in some way while framing it that, well, we're here to protect you. Yeah, no, God protects women. I'm not saying men never do, but stop it, okay? Like, again, this is about needing to surrender. And finally, God naturally was flushing out this construct of masculinity, the ugly construct of it. Just like feminism has the ugly construct too. But both have that ugliness to it, okay? I can't stand this divine feminine thing and this, we're masculine. Both are really just ugly. They're just ugly. They don't represent God. They just, and with Turning Point, they tried to wrap it up that it was about God, and it was such bullshit. And, but the feminist movement does that too when they go down too far into this path of, it's the divine feminine. No, neither side is divine, okay? But over time, over generations, just like God always does it, he's been slowly flushing out the toxic part. Thereby, the construct starts to fade with each generation. And what did the elites do? Because, the elites are on, the power behind both sides. They put Charlie Kirk together, like, oh no, God's trying to, God's really going to be trying to implement his kingdom. So Turning Point was created to prevent the implementation of God's kingdom. Of course, that's not going to work, but that's what Charlie Kirk was serving. While he stood up there and told people that he was about God. Because it talks a lot in the Bible, the Old Testament, about these generational curses. Okay, well, the biggest curse came because of the original sin, because it brought these constructs. And the biggest curse of the construct of the original sin was masculinity. So there is a healthy masculinity that most women like, even feminists would like. But feminists fought back because of the Charlie Kirk masculinity, because it's ugly. It isn't masculinity, it's why he didn't have it. He was just a dick. He was a dick. He just was. People could say, oh, you can't say that. No, again, that's what he was. I said it even when he was alive, so, and I'm going to say it because while the Trumps and the Mike Johnsons and the Republican GOP wants to carry on, Andy Biggs, think about this, Mike Johnson and Andy Biggs are going to make sure there's a statue, an idol of Kirk, as if we don't have enough things that those jackasses could be focusing on, but they have to focus on Charlie Kirk. See, this is all the way the devil works, which is who they serve. There's a reason the Bible says it's about powers and principalities, right? You think anybody really in any kind of political position isn't controlled by those powers and principalities? They are, and it's Satan. So, of course, all of those minions there in D.C. in the swamp on both sides, well, they serve Satan, and they all prove that, which is why I do hope that Mike Johnson loses his seat. I hope Andy Biggs does too. I hope all of these people that stood on that stage at Turning Point and continue to push Charlie Kirk, I hope every one of them lose their seats.